So hopefully for the last video for chapter 21, at least I'm going to try it, we have two different types of immunity. We have innate immunity versus adaptive immunity. So innate immunity is you all can't sit with this. So this is our natural born ability to fight off infections. Adaptive immunity is you specifically can't sit with us. So this is the immune system adapting to a pathogen, developing a specific defense against a pathogen. Okay, so innate immunity. So this is, again, our innate defense, our natural born defense against a pathogen. They can't remember what a pathogen is, so no memory cells are created specifically against that pathogen. Their job is to kill everything foreign, regardless of what it is. So we have three different defenses in innate immunity. We have protective proteins, protective cells, and different protective processes. And again, non-specific, just kills off things indiscriminately. Again, can't remember a pathogen. Adaptive immunity, your body develops a defense against each specific pathogen that it's exposed to, whether by an infection naturally or artificially using a vaccine. And again, next time when you're exposed to that pathogen, whether by actual, if you actually get sick, then you have the defenses already built up against it. Okay, let's start with innate immunity. You all can't sit with us. So we have our first set is our external barrier. So our skin, mechanically difficult to get through. So remembering our different layers, some of them are even toughened with different proteins, so keratin particularly. On the surface, very dry, very nutrient poor, so harder for microbes to grow on it. Also on your skin, you have what's called the acid mantle. So that is sweat and sebum, so oil. That's also going to inhibit bacterial growth. And inside your skin, you have dermacidin, defensins, and cathocidins. Those are small chain peptides, so proteins that will kill off microbes. Other external barriers, so we have our mucous membrane. So instead of the skin, this is stuff that is exposed to the outside environment. So digestive, respiratory, urinary, and reproductive tracts, they all have these mucous membranes. So the mucus is nice and thick and gooey and can trap the microbes. They also contain these lysozymes that's going to help destroy for example, your bacterial cell walls that are been trapped in that mucus. If you get past that epithelial tissue layer, there is connective tissue, particularly your areolar tissue. So remember those in the tissue section. It kind of looks like dryer sheets. So everything's kind of randomly and loosely organized. White blood cells can hang out there and do their job, but there's also hyaluronic acid to help make everything thicker in that tissue and help to keep pathogens from being able to move deeper into your body. Some pathogens actually have an enzyme, so ACE enzyme, to break down this hyaluronic acid and therefore make that area less thick and less able to trap them. Okay, next part of innate immunity is fever. So this is elevating our body temperature for the whole body. So sometimes you can have an area of warmth just at your infection site, but a fever is just in general for the rest of the body. So benefits of a fever, even though it can get out of control if not regulated, it elevates your metabolic rate and accelerate tissue repair. So possibly if you have an infection, it might be because you got cut. And so helping to heal that area. It also inhibits the reproduction of viruses and bacteria. So many of the viruses and bacteria that can infect us and live inside our body or just reproduce, in the case of viruses, reproduce in our body, they work best and function best at the same homeostasis set points that we have. So certain, for example, bacteria, let's say you ate something and it wasn't as clean as it should have been, that bacteria gets into your stomach. Well, now it's in the wrong pH. So the pH of the stomach being acidic, it can kill it off. Same thing with fever. The point is to raise the homeostatic set point of our body so that it's too warm for them to be in the body and therefore hopefully die off. Just hopefully we also stay alive too. So let's say you do have a fever. Of course, real world, you still got to go to work, still got to go to school. So the category of medications to reduce your fever so you at least kind of feel better are called antipyretics. So for example, aspirin, ibuprofen, they stop one of the chemicals in that regulated process in order to produce the fever. So the fever is triggered by what's called exogenous, so exogenous meaning foreign, pyrogens that are on the surface of your bacteria and viruses that help trigger that response. So our fever is triggered as part of our brain resetting the thermostat for our body. So our hypothalamus, the brain resets the set point for the body temperature, basically put it at a higher one so our body starts working to maintain that higher or warmer body temperature and hopefully stuff kills off. Now, we have 3 different stages of fever. We have onset, stadium, and defervescence. So basically, start, stay, stop. So here is our different stages. And this looks a little bit different from your book because this has like red and green on there. And if you have color blindness, you can tell the difference. Okay, so our normal body temperature, again, this is in Celsius, kind of the scientific thing, sorry. 37 degrees Celsius is our normal one. We kind of fluctuate around that number. So here we have the start of an infection. And our infection is this kind of, I forgot what those things are called. Trapezoid? Something. Anyway, the square looking sucker. It's kind of a little wider on the ends. I think it's called a trapezoid. Anyway, here's our infection. So we have the start of infection. The pyrogens on the surface of the bacteria or virus, they will trigger the start of an infection. So even though you might actually have already been infected, you might not actually start having a fever symptom until later. So our fever set at a higher point, and we'll stay at this higher point, and that is our stadium. So we just kind of stay in this area. And then eventually our infection goes away. We fought off the pathogen, but you'll still have a fever until your, it's called defervescence, so returning back down to a normal body temperature. So basically, if you still have a fever, you're still sick. So that's why right now we're doing the fever checks because, hey, you have a fever, you're sick. That doesn't happen until we're like, okay, we're clear of the foreign pathogens. Okay, we can go back to a normal body temperature. The next generic response or innate response to an infection is inflammation. So this is a local response to an injury. So purposes of that to limit the spread of pathogens. So it's going to corral them into that area. And then all those white blood cells that come in, they can help destroy the pathogens that have been corralled in that area. Also allows for removing debris from the damaged tissue. So you get those white blood cells, they're white blood cells. Get those macrophages in there and break up stuff. Debris is removed because you have increased fluid moving in there, and that causes increased pressure to just flap open those lymphatic endothelial kind of doors into those capillaries, and that also can remove the debris from the tissue, and then initiating the tissue repair. So we have 4 cardinal signs of inflammation. So we have redness, swelling, heat, and pain. So here are the bases of them. Heat is from an increase of blood flow. So that increase of warm blood to that area is going to make it a little bit warmer. So if you ever had a cut or a insect bite, and of course you got to scratching, and then you got some bacteria in there, and so that little small area where that bite was, which is now infected, like that area is a little bit warmer than the other parts of your body surrounding it. That's that heat. Redness, same thing, increased blood flow, so hyperemia, due to the red blood cells that have been as the extra blood goes to that area. Next one is swelling, so extra blood to that area, extra fluid pushed out into the tissue, so you do have what's called edema, so just excess fluid in that area. And then lastly, pain. So some of it's because your nerves have been injured, and so therefore you get a pain signal to the brain, because the brain is like, this signal is abnormal, must be pain. Of course it also does, sometimes it just starts making up stuff, but abnormal signal, brain detects it as pain. Sometimes it's just because the swelling in that area pushes against the nerves, and so it's going to cause pain. Or because the damaged tissue has stimulated pain receptors by releasing prostaglandins, or toxins from the bacteria, as well as bradykinin can also stimulate pain. So that pain is also going to be helpful. So pain is helpful in the healing process also because you're less likely to move that area, and so therefore allowing it to heal. Okay, so how do we get stuff going? So first one, we have a tissue injury or infection. So in that case, we're going to need some white blood cells, so our leukocytes. So again, that increased blood flow, that hyperemia, that is caused by vasodilation, so increase in the size of the blood vessels due to different vasoactive chemicals that increases the blood flow. It also helps to wash toxins and waste out of that area, because it's going to, that extra fluid is just going to essentially rinse out the tissue. So get stuff out of that area. So with these vasoactive chemicals, they're also going to make your capillaries more permeable. So open up the gap spaces between your endothelial cells of your capillaries. This allows for more fluid, your leukocytes, white blood cells, as well as your plasma proteins, for example, like antibodies, to escape out into your tissues and therefore go do their job. This isn't on your whatever. Also, selectins will also help with attracting those white blood cells to the walls of your capillary. So it's kind of like, hey, hold on, catch you, bring you in so you can go to the tissues. Okay, so one type of white blood cell that is attracted to an area of infection is a neutrophil. So first step is margination, so on the margin of the capillaries where they stick to the blood vessel wall. Then they have diapetes, so this is immigration, so moving from the capillary into the tissue. Sorry. Okay, and then I'm going to say it here. I know it's on here, but anyway, so that neutrophil is guided by chemotaxis, so that increasing chemical gradient to the area of infection. Okay, so with our local infection area, inflammation helps to keep the pathogens from going away from that area. So you have fibrinogen, which is one of your blood plasma proteins, help to wall off the microbes into that particular area. You have your heparin, which prevents clots, so keep that fluid going into that area, as well as all of your other defenses into that area. There's the neutrophils. Okay, so neutrophils, how are they guided to the injury site? So due to the chemotaxis, so they are led by a increasing concentration of chemicals released by the injured tissue that's going to attract those neutrophils to the infection site. So neutrophils, what they're going to do when they get there, phagocytosis, so eat stuff, respiratory burst, so that's that cloud of chemicals, which will also kill it. Secrete cytokinins to attract more macrophages and neutrophils to that area, which are then going to stimulate the production of more leukocytes so that you can have even more soldiers against the pathogens. So sometimes when you get blood work done, they'll go ahead and do the white blood cell count to make sure that your cell counts are normal. So if you have an increase in white blood cells, particularly in certain ones, then you know, hey, there is an increase in a particular type of infection. So neutrophilia, so way more neutrophils than normal, then that's most likely a bacterial infection. Eosinophilia is usually a allergy or parasitic infection. So again, that's the weird kid who fights against those types of that stimulation. Okay, edema. So our swelling helps to compress the veins. So instead of the fluid just being collected back into the veins and circulating back through your circulatory system, the increased pressure, because the fluid isn't going through the veins, is now going to be shifted towards your lymphatic capillary. So pushing open those saloon doors, that fluid's going to go into the lymphatic capillaries. Therefore, it can go into those lymph nodes, and that's where those white blood cells are just hanging out and waiting for them. Another way for our tissue repair is you'll see sometimes if you have, and sometimes this happens even just like with a insect bite or something where you have pus, where it's just a bunch of collection of debris, fluid, bacteria, dead neutrophils. So sometimes that's why it gets the different colors, where it just in that area and it just wasn't properly moved out the way. That pus can sometimes be packaged up to in an area in a tissue cavity and just kind of stay there. Or sometimes if it burst and then is stuck in the tissue versus like going out towards the skin, you end up being stuck there, and eventually it just takes time for it to clear out. Another thing dealing with cleanup and repair, so our platelets, again, they do a bunch of different jobs. So they're going to secrete a growth factor that helps with repair, stimulate your fibroblasts. So in our connective tissue, those fibroblasts are the ones making the fiber structures, and help with synthesizing collagen, which is also going to be a supporting structure fiber to help with tissue repair. With that hyperemia, so the increased blood flow, making sure that tissue gets the nutrients it needs for tissue repair. Excuse me. Increased heat, so again, extra blood flow to that area, it's warmer. Increased metabolic rate, that's going to speed up repair. The fibrin, that scaffold, actually helps with repair. So that gate that was helping to keep the pathogens in there while it killed off stuff, that gate also works as a scaffold for repair. And there it is. So earlier I was talking about pain. Because that area might be in pain, you will stop moving that body or part around and allow it to heal itself. Okay, one last video for this chapter, and that's adaptive immunity, and then we'll go into how we can develop different types of immunity. Almost done.